What is going on, everybody? Hope you guys are having a wonderful Friday. I feel like we've got a really fun slate going on tonight. I'm excited for it. Hopefully everybody's doing well in golf. I entered one lineup. It's doing pretty well, but it doesn't really have any serious financial gaining. I didn't really play much golf this week, and I am ready for Friday, which means I'm going to open my little kombucha. And we are going to talk about the slate for 20 minutes, maybe even give or take a little bit of time there, because the only game with real weather concerns that actually affects me is a little bit the Boston Tampa, but I think it should be okay. So I'm not terribly worried. I do want to say hello to everybody, and Adam Perry's back in the house. Let's go, buddy. Let's go. All right, my man Adam Perry's back. It's always good to see Adam. We haven't seen him in a while, and he is a very, very sharp DFS player. I know he doesn't do as much with baseball or dropped out of it for a little bit, but NFL's coming up. We've got a big baseball slate tonight. Time to build the bankroll for the big NFL. Missed hanging out with you too, buddy. Anyway, so I'm going to be getting into the slate, and it's there's a lot of ways to go and nothing obvious, which makes it feel really nice. I think that Philly is the most obvious, obviously, but I'm willing to commit 20% of my stacks to Philly and be a little bit over the field, because I think there's enough other spread out stuff. There's enough combo stacks you can get into. I wouldn't worry about it too much. And also, with as far as their hitters go, you really can, Veerling in the 9-hole. Castellanos is going to be low owned. Segura is going to be low owned. Bryson Stott's going to be low owned. Just include two of those guys, or not even just one, and then build a couple of different spots elsewhere, and I think you're okay. I don't have any current projections. As shout out to Goldie for doing an awesome job in Sheets' absence. I don't have any player on this slate above 14%, and neither does, let me see, Sabersim has a couple guys at 15, I believe. But yeah, it's really there's just not a whole lot to worry about as far as ownership, I don't think. So I think this is a really good slate to play if you're a GPP player. In general, if I'm playing 150 today, I would probably include more stacks. I'm really heavily focused on Toronto. I do like Philly as the number 2 stack, and it's more of an ownership thing. I think Philly probably gets there enough of the time here, but I really, really feel like this is a spot where I want to take Toronto, and I think they finally have that outburst game. They're going to be very low owned. Detmers, you can have mixed feelings. I have mixed feelings about him in general. If you're going to struggle with strikeouts against this Toronto team, and I know he's had some good games where he's gotten there, I just feel like this is a spot where Toronto could kind of hammer him, and I like the idea of getting into that bullpen. He did have the 2 7-inning starts, Detmers, not too long ago. But other than that, has been sort of in the 4 to 6 inning range, even a little lower in some cases. And you can really you can definitely hammer him. His strikeouts are just so wild. Like, he'll go these games and, he pitched what did he have, a 9-inning game with 1 strikeout earlier this year or 2 strikeouts. And then he has, then he'll strike out 12 against Texas. It's really hard to figure him out for me. But I like the idea of betting on Toronto at home here against a lefty. That's a righty dominant lineup. And I just feel good about the idea of getting them at lower ownership outside of maybe Alejandro Kirk. And even that, I don't expect to be that crazy. But these are by no means, you could make a lot of arguments here. So going through, those are my favorites. I really like the White Sox as a low-owned stack also. Bubic is, everybody seems to like Bubic in the DFS world. I don't know if it's because he's cheap and he's had some 18 fantasy point games or something. He's been pretty terrible, just in real life numbers, and he gets hit hard. So I can get behind the White Sox, especially because they have so much value on their team, to either use as a combo or a part of a main stack. And I think they'll get a little bit of steam, but it won't be anything you have to worry about. I love the Yankees against their former pitcher. I always love to do this, and we'll see how it works. I don't know if I love them as a full stack, but if you play Stanton, Judge, and then you get the cheapo in Cabrera that you want to include in that stack, maybe throw Trevino and you get a 4-man. I kind of like that spot, especially Trevino's caught Sears before. I always like that. So that's my other weird stack. And the Mets are pretty clearly, obviously in a good spot. They're going to probably be the next most owned team to Philly. I do like the Mets for what it's worth. They're expensive, and I also, in general, don't tend to stack against Colorado pitchers outside of Colorado. But if you look at the road numbers for Cool this year, he just gets hammered. And I feel like the Mets he's going to leave a couple too many over the plate. So even if you're not stacking the Mets, I do really like the Mets. The teams that I'm afraid of being underweight on, and there's a really good one in here, that would be Houston. I believe in Bradish's talent for the future. Obviously not the ideal hitter's park, but I'm really afraid to be underweight on Houston. I don't even know underweight. I have more of Houston probably than the field does, like around 10%, but they're a team I really considered going heavy on early in the day. The other team that I'm afraid of not being high on is a weird one. It's not that I want to be like so overweight on them, but there's some pieces for the Minnesota against Alex Wood that just seem like they match up well pitch profile wise. Miranda, Sanchez, Garlick, but he's going to probably get pinch hit for. And they're another team that I just didn't quite get to, but I kind of liked early on. And both sides of the Tampa-Boston game, I think, are very, very interesting, but I am not finding myself able to quite commit to a stack there. I am going to use a ton of pieces from Cincinnati-Washington. So drop in your thoughts. Let's get it to Rody. Let's give a shout out to Rody. Rody's playing in the DK Live final tomorrow. Let's get Rody $1 million. How about that? How about I get 100K tonight, and you guys get 50K for the relay, and Rody gets $1 million. You guys can even have the 100K. I'll take 50. I won't be too greedy. But I really like this. And again, I want to give another big shout out to Goldie for filling in for Sheets and keeping up the good stuff with the projections. The numbers are basically identical. They use an incredible aggregation system, and they're really done a great job. And Rody, I really want you to take this one down, buddy. This is the one. I feel like Rody keeps playing for $1 million, and it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. We just don't know when. Maybe this is the one. I've got a good feeling about this one for Rody. So I hope he does his thing and gets a little bit off the board. I don't know who's on the slate that he's going to be chasing, but I would hope that it's the Dodgers or something, because Rody seems to have good luck with them. So they're in Boston, I believe. So anyway, getting into pitching, it's a pretty heavy shift. If you're not playing Garrett Cole, you're just playing game theory, which is totally fine in baseball. The matchup is perfect. Garrett Cole, even when the funny part is he's had a really down year by his standards, and he still is one of the leaders in fantasy points per game because he can give up 3 or 4 runs and get you those 10. When he gets into trouble, he ends up striking out more guys. So I really like the idea of just being overweight on Cole. I know he's going to be popular, but I think that's just the right thing to do. And on FanDuel, the only other guy I'm playing other than Cole is Bieber. I understand some love for Freddie Peralta, and it's going to be kind of spread out. It's so hard for me with Chris Bassett. I like him. He's got a long leash. He's a good pitcher. Just really weird to think that we're playing Chris Bassett at these prices when we've got Strider, who's the best strikeout pitcher on the slate, just beneath him. So I've put my lineups together with Strider and Bassett because I feel like they're in a similar boat. I do prefer Bieber as my SP2 to Cole, number one. And I also am going to be basically non-existent on McCullers. I think that's actually a spot where I would consider like 150 lineups. 5 of them would be Baltimore stacks today. Baltimore wins more slates than anybody in August anyways, it seems like. So why not? My spend downs for pitching are Cavalli, and I really like Justin Steele. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with the ownership on Justin Steele. There is a tremendous, the guy's got a 6.5K prop today against a pretty weak-looking lineup, against a team that strikes out. Now, of course, Milwaukee's got a few scary bats, and it's a decent hitter's park, more for lefties than for righties, though. I can't get over this where I'm going to have Justin Steele in one of my 2 big buy-ins on DK, and I'm probably going to have Cavalli in one of my 2 big buy-ins, and the other 2 I have are Bieber and Cole, so I'm kind of giving it away. That's what I'm doing. A lot of my builds look similar to what they did when I posted them on the site earlier, those early builds. The weirdest part is it's a great tracking system for how I mess myself up, because my early builds tend to be better than my finishing builds these days. Just been one of those months, and not been a good month for this guy. Other guys to get weird with, Joe Ryan would be another one I would consider. Glenn Otto, Bailey Falter. I don't think you need to do all that, but those are the other guys in that consideration. And the super huge play the lottery. I'm playing 150. I would have 5% Mike Minor if I was playing 150, maybe even a little bit higher. A guy who can throw 110 pitches, period, versus a Washington team that has a 130 ISO against left-handed pitching is enough of a reason for me to at least consider Mike Minor, which feels really gross to even say out loud. I actually feel sick a little bit that I said it. Mitch White is a good real-life pitcher. I believe in he's a solid guy. He's not going to throw a ton of pitches. He's Not going to work crazy deep, but it is the Angels. We've seen that work before. So I'm just throwing out some other guys. These are guys I'm not playing, but I wouldn't mind if you wanted to take that weird shot. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm doing overall. Pop in questions, pop in thoughts. St. Louis against Strider. So I think it's a good question. Strider, really good against righties, high strikeout rate. St. Louis, that's a good lineup. That's why I'm a little bit having a hard time getting Strider into one of my 2 big buy-ins. It's a really good lineup all the way through. I think it's a little too cute for this slate for me to stack St. Louis, but I certainly wouldn't mind using pieces if I wasn't stacking them. I just don't feel you can. I like the theory in general of trying to pick on the young guy who's got, maybe can get a little wild or something at times, although he's actually kept the control reasonable. The strikeouts have always been there. The only game he really got lit up was at Washington in the Mets. Other than the Mets and Washington, which is really weird that it was Washington, he's been really good. He dominated this St. Louis team last time he faced them. He struck out 12 in 6 innings. So I'm not on St. Louis, but I don't mind if you want to take a couple pieces. I think that playing a full stack of St. Louis is probably too cute, especially with Atlanta with a lot to play for and going to use their best bullpen arms, even if they're down by 5 or 6. Atlanta Love versus Quintana, not for me. I've mentioned this a number of times about Quintana. He's not a guy I like playing, and he's not a guy I like stacking against. Atlanta always can go off. We know that about them. But to try to pick on a guy who just doesn't give up home runs is really weird. Like, he's only given up home runs in 5 of his 18 starts this year, which doesn't sound like, okay, it's just not enough. He had a 2 home run game where the Giants got him, and Atlanta actually got him for 3 home runs in 5 innings. So if you want to do it, sure. It just feels like, what are we trying to do on this slate? Maybe we should find better spots than taking a real good life pitcher and trying to stack against them just because we have a good offense. That we could just decide to do that with about 10 different teams tonight. So it just feels like a too cute of a play for me personally. All right, let's see what else we got here in the chat. Looks like mostly Rody talking about the trip. And again, I'm calling it right now. My man Rody's going to win the million. So everything else is gravy. We want to see our true DFS guy win the full million. I almost did it with the golf earlier this year. Sheets ended up coming in second in that one. So we both almost got the million. Maybe Rody becomes the first true DFSer as a true DFSer to win the million. Quintana never really, I just think he's just always been who he is, and he just doesn't have as good of stuff as he used to. He's just a good pitcher, just a solid, slightly above average major league pitcher. That's who he is. I also, in general, don't like to play Atlanta on the road because I think their stadium is an incredible hitter's park that gets overlooked a lot of the time. And they're just much, much better at home in general than they are on the road per inning, per scoring, for home runs, all that stuff. And by the way, I'm not trying to talk about playing Quintana. I'm just telling you why I don't want to play Atlanta. But again, if you're going to tell me you want to play Acuna, one of Acuna, Riley, or Swanson, how can I argue with that? You know what I mean? Like, I'd have to be a lunatic to argue with it, with playing those guys. They're monsters. They can all have a big game against anybody. So it's just the other plays that I enjoy better. Oh, that's brutal. I know that was a brutal trade. That was really a bad one. I hear you there though on that one. That's pretty rough. Season Eloy Jimenez, I think you'd probably rather have at this point rather than Jose Quintana. It's really big. Anyway, guys, I'm still here to answer questions, talk about what I'm doing. I'll go through my positions real quick. At catcher, I'm using a lot of Keibert Ruiz, a lot of Kirk, and some Gary Sanchez and Real Muto. First base, Hoskins, Guerrero, Alonso, Abreu are my favorites. Second base, using Segura in my Philly stacks, Merrifield in my Toronto stacks, and then my spend downs are going to be Massey and Gonzalez at 2K minimum. I don't like the position very much. It's either like all the way up for Altuve, stacks, Massey or Gonzalez. That's what it is for me. Third base, Chapman in your Toronto stacks, Baum in your Philly stacks, Batty in your Met stacks. And as a one-off on DraftKings, I don't really have one that I'm that addicted to. So I think Josh Donaldson on FanDuel is really reasonable. And you could argue for DraftKings too, but he's 2.6 over there. Nobody I feel like I need to play. Machado's really expensive, but I do like him a little bit as well. The outfield, again, Judge and Stanton, I'm going to have paired together in a number of lineups, assuming that they actually are both in the starting lineup, which we don't have yet. You'd think they would be because the Yankees kind of been just hanging on for dear life in the second half of the season until last night. They kind of exploded. But I really do like some of these cheap options, Lane Thomas, Jake Fraley being my favorite of the cheapos. Then I do like Nimmo, Naquin, and Marte. I like Eloy, Vaughn, and Pollock, whether in stacks or not. And obviously Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, very, very strong place. Strider, Peralta for single entry. I think it's okay. I mean, the only thing you have to ask yourself about the Strider thing is that 1,200 discount from Garrett Cole enough? Maybe it is. Maybe it's enough to get you there. I like the idea of those two together, but I don't know, for single entries, I think it's fine. I'm not personally doing that. I'm a little bit lower on Peralta than the field is today, but I do have some of him. And I like Strider and I like Bassett, but I'm sort of keeping them in like one lineup kind of things. I'm not really like trying to target them. I'm going more for the Cole, Bieber, and it makes me a little nervous because I do like Seattle's offense, but I think Bieber is just a very underrated pitcher with incredible strikeout stuff and is very, very, just very underrated overall. And I think there's enough strikeouts in there for him to really get it going and have a big game here. And he's looked better to me the last few starts. So that's why I'm not quite as high on those two guys. But I think it's fine. Absolutely, that's a legitimate single entry starting two pitchers. It's just not what I'm doing. All right, let's see what else we got here. Looks like the questions are drying up. The thoughts are drying up. We'll have Sheets back next week. We'll have football back really soon. It's going to be really, really fun. By the way, what the hell? Like, as a Laker fan, I'm okay with it. Probably means Westbrook's gone, which I know everybody else thinks is a great thing. I actually like Westbrook, and I think that was he just became the scapegoat for absolutely, like, it was just going to happen if they didn't win. And the fact that LeBron and AD barely played, like, it's so weird. But what the hell are they like? Taylor Horton-Tucker, they could have gotten some real pieces over the last couple of years for this guy. And now it becomes for Pat Beverly. It's just a really weird thing, even though I'm actually happy to have Pat Beverly. Very strange. So I think that Strider brings the upside, and I think Bieber has the upside too, but they're both in tough matchups. You know, those are not easy teams they're playing. I think that the odds are really close between Peralta and Bieber. I don't think it's a massive difference. Bieber's a better pitcher, better strikeout stuff. Pretty much a guarantee to throw 90 plus pitches. Take a miracle for him not to, like getting lit up. Playing a team out of division, so they don't face him as often. Everything is sort of leading me towards Bieber in general, but I do completely have no problem if you want to go the Peralta route. He has not been good for what it's worth, and I think he had the one incredible game against Atlanta in May, and then in his 4 starts since coming back, not any of them would you take in any of these situations, including against these Cubs the other day. Whereas Bieber is still a legitimate ace, former Cy Young winner, has had some tough matchups lately and still came out of it okay. He's going to pitch deep into the game, 90 pitches automatically, basically. I feel a little better about Bieber than Peralta, but I totally understand the Peralta argument. Who's the number one NFL player you're not leaving a draft with? I don't know what that means. So the number one player that I won't draft? I got to rephrase that one because I'm open to answering it. I just don't understand it quite. Number one NFL player. Who's one NFL player you're not leaving a draft with? Not leaving a draft with? I won't leave a draft with, I don't know, Trubisky. I don't know. Even that's probably not the worst thing in the world. Oh, favorite to draft. Okay. Positions. I'm just trying to think really quickly to look at my stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's a tough question. I have like 10 guys rated very similarly, and I think everybody else has a stronger take on the beginning. I think you win those things in the later rounds anyway. I don't have like a surprise out of nowhere guy who's gonna, be a top pick. I don't know. It's a really good question. I got to think a little more about that one. I'll get back to that when we do our football shows because I do want to talk more about that stuff. I don't have a great one. I do think I like Rody said Chargers. You could play all the Chargers, and I think that they're going to be a really fun team, especially for fantasy and all that. All right. Any more baseball related things? And weird basketball stuff. I'm just trying to look at what we got here. I do have one weird basketball take I'm going to throw out there. And this is not a thing I would normally say. First of all, I did it. I got to give myself a little pat on the back for one thing. I got Brooklyn at 40-1 and just cashed the ticket for 3 times my money without a game being played. Because I figured when I looked at the landscape after the trade for Gobert that I just didn't see those guys going anywhere. They're 7-1. They're 7-1 to win the title. And they were 40-1. So I've tripled my money and I just cashed out. That felt really good. It felt like a really, really one of my better things. Favorite catcher to pay down. I like Ruiz. I think Caratini's fine if you're not using whatever in your lineups. He's got enough pop to where you can use him. Switch hitter, so less chance of obviously getting pitch hit for, but always a chance, I guess, but less likely. But Ruiz is probably my favorite spend down as catcher. I like Trevino too, assuming that he's in the lineup tonight against a guy who formerly pitched to him. So I'm always a fan of that. The teams against their former pitchers. Nothing else really, it's the same thing sometimes with basketball will happen, but mostly like it's really a baseball thing when you have a pitcher who's been on a team and came up through a system. They should know that pitcher well, right? It's not great hitting conditions in Oakland today, but you're telling me you're going to get Yankees at like 2%. I'm willing to take that chance against any lefty, much less a guy that used to pitch for them. So I'm gonna get some Yankees. The Bassett thing I totally get. I'm finding myself more in the Cole Bieber train, but I do like to have like my one Bassett 250 lineup in there, which I'm going to have. And I'm going to have Bassett probably with, in that case, I'm going to probably have Bassett with Strider. I also feel really weird leaving, not McCullers, excuse me. The 2 guys I always get mixed up, McCullers and Musgrove. I do feel weird leaving Musgrove mostly out of my lineups today. I think that he's talented enough to really get the job done against KC. But I just couldn't quite argue for him quite as highly as I could the guys around him. There's really no other excuse for it than that. I mean, I'll have a pivot lineup with him again instead of Bieber. I'll have a pivot lineup with him instead of Strider. But it's not going to be like he's not a priority guy for me. Waka did not cross my mind for half a second today. So unless I'm missing something, partly that was maybe weather related. Let me just double check his ownership. 0 ownership, 8,500. I think playing Waka would be a really bad decision. Personally, there's just too many other guys who could outscore him. Even if he pitches well, you don't even know if that's going to equate to being a game that you would want. You got guys who can really put up some numbers. He's been way better than people think this year in real life. He doesn't go deep into games mostly. He's not a great fantasy producer. Had the one outstanding game against the Angels, who doesn't? And that sort of skewed his numbers for fantasy average production because he put up like 39 in that game. But I just can't quite get there. It just feels like you're playing a median play. And if I'm going to play him, I'd rather play Peralta. But kind of an interesting thing to thought-provoking to maybe throw him into one out of, if you have 30 lineups, maybe he's in one of them. Wind blowing in Toronto. I'm going to guess the roof is closed. We can take a quick look at that. Roof, Toronto, closed. Let's see what happens. Rogers Center, we are going to see roof status. Why can't everybody just do it like the Diamondbacks do, where it's just really easy to find right away? I would need to know if that roof's open. I don't know if the roof's open. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm going to guess that it's closed, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Could easily be open today. I didn't have wind blowing into that game because I had the game as closed. So unless you know something I don't, which means the roof's open, I would like to see that if you do have that information. A roof is open. I did not have that information. And how much wind do we have blowing in there? It doesn't tend to affect as much in Toronto, but I'm curious how much wind exactly we have blowing in. Let's see what we got on my Toronto list here. That's a really good. I like that. I like that you guys brought that up. That's sharp. I don't have any wind amount. Does anybody see how much wind is blowing in Toronto? Again, it doesn't affect that stadium the same, but still, like, it's not like San Francisco where it doesn't affect it at all. I have to look at that a little bit. So I'm going to try to take a quick gander. And you know what? Maybe I'll just throw it out to my buddy Roth and see what he says about it, and get to you guys in Discord. If you're not in Discord, please get in there now. I'm going to pop the link in. It's an awesome Discord. We got great people, and we would love to hear from you guys. So let me pop this on in here. And make sure you guys all are already on our Discord. And again, good luck to Rody to win the million. Good luck to all of you tonight. Good luck to me tonight. Let's make some money. Let's have a true DFS winning night and make some real money. Every stack is going to be low owned, so it's the same stacks for me. Toronto is probably my number one right now. But I do like the White Sox, Mets, Yankees, and then the Phillies are the chalky one. Good luck to everybody. Let's freaking go.